everyone, I'm Katie with Free Tours by Foot. I am coming to you today from Central Park. We're going to take a walk around and talk about some of the different locations that you can see cherry blossoms. Spring is finally here in New York City, and so a lot of people visiting want to know about where to see cherry blossoms. The good news is you can see cherry blossoms in multiple locations in Central Park, and because we have several different varieties of cherry trees here, the blooming season is actually quite long because they all peak at different times. So right behind me, you can see a good example of what we would call pre-peak, meaning you can see these little buds on this tree here, these little tiny pink buds, but they haven't really started to open yet. We're going to walk through the park to some of the different areas. Some of them are going to be pre-peak, some of them are going to be blooming already, but we'll talk about all of those different spots. So one of the locations where you can find cherry blossoms, just a short walk into the park, is along the west side of the sheep meadow, which is right out here. So the sheep meadow lawn is not yet open for the season, but as you can see behind me, we have some pre-peak beautiful cherry blossoms. We're right across the street from Tavern on the Green, the iconic restaurant, and across the way from Tavern on the Green, we have some more cherry blossoms that are starting to be in a little bit fuller bloom. So this west side of the sheep meadow is a good place to catch a quick glimpse of the cherry blossoms. So we are at a place called Cherry Hill. Probably not surprisingly, Cherry Hill has an enormous number of cherry trees. This is a very, very popular spot for people to come during cherry blossom season. So these, as you can see, are still in their pre-peak form. So you can see these little tiny buds on here. So this is late March when we're filming this right now. If you are planning a visit in early April, these will probably be right about at their full peak. So you should absolutely consider coming here and checking out Cherry Hill. These are Yoshino cherries, one of the varieties we have here. It's a pretty beautiful setting. If you see here, we have the lake right behind us. You can see over into the Ramble. And then this is just a short walk over to Bow Bridge, which we're going to walk by in just a few minutes. And you can head over towards Bethesda Terrace. But definitely Cherry Hill is not to be missed. So even though we are here today talking about the cherry blossoms, something else you absolutely have to point out about Central Park at this time of year is you will see thousands of daffodils. So you can see some right behind me. We're actually on a little stretch. We're walking from Cherry Hill and we're making our way over to the east side of the park. So we're walking right now on a pathway that leads along the lake and it's heading over to Bethesda Terrace. And this is one of the stretches of the park where we're going to actually start passing quite a few daffodils as we go. They're one of our earliest signs of spring here in New York. I personally always get very, very excited when I start to see the daffodils coming up in New York because I know that that means winter is finally almost over. So we have more up here over to the side. You'll actually see quite a few different varieties of daffodils, lots of different colors and even different sizes. We have some little miniature ones that tend to pop up first and flower first, but then we start to have our larger ones. We have the yellows over here. We have some whites, a white varietal over this way. So it's a really beautiful time of year to come here. If you're coming a bit later in the season to see the cherry blossoms in fuller bloom in some parts of the park, you'll probably also start to see some tulips coming up. It's a little bit early for tulips right now here in late March, but if you start coming in April, very, very likely you're going to start to see some of those as well. Spring is an absolutely gorgeous time of year to come and visit Central Park. So if you are coming at all in the next few weeks, make sure you do not miss coming to this park. And now we're here at Bethesda Terrace. So we're now just to the east of Bethesda Terrace, and we came across this cluster that is definitely in much fuller bloom than what we've seen so far. So like we said at the beginning of the video, because we have different varietals and they're all spread across the park, not everything peaks and blooms at the same time. So when you're walking through, you want to keep your eye out for those clusters that might be a little bit further along, like this one is. So I'm over here pretty close to the conservatory waters, so to the east of Bethesda Terrace, and as I'm walking through and catching a glance of all of these little tiny blooms, you can tell by looking at how many trees you're starting to see that little bit of pink on them. This is going to look absolutely spectacular in just a couple of weeks. So another great place to see cherry blossoms, and actually see a different varietal of cherry blossoms, is here at the Great Lawn. So I'm on the west side of the Great Lawn right now, right at about 81st Street. So this varietal that you see is called a Hagen cherry blossom, and that has more of that like kind of weeping willow look to it. These are also pre-peak, so you can see there are some flowers, they are starting to open, but it is still considered pre-peak. But yet again, in just a couple of weeks, you will have some really beautiful blooms in this area of the park. We came here to Central Park today because cherry blossom season is amazing and beautiful in New York City. Central Park is one of the great places to come and see cherry blossoms. First of all, it's free to come to Central Park and check these out, and they are also in multiple locations of the park. We visited some of them like Sheep Meadow, the Great Lawn, another great place is the Reservoir. So there are multiple locations and multiple varietals, but cherry blossom season can be tough to time. There is no set date that it starts every year. The blooms only last for so long. So we did this a couple weeks in advance of peak time so that you have a little bit of time to plan. If you're coming to New York in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you can make your plans to come here to Central Park and come to some of these different areas. We will be back in just a couple of weeks, so for those of you who can't join us in New York City in person this spring, you'll still get to experience all of the beautiful cherry blossoms here in Central Park.